Just to prove I'm not imposter.
So my name is Peter Jekyll. I have been in this business for over 30 years. I started working at Price Waterhouse after I got an engineering degree. And the interesting thing about the engineering degree is that it was, anybody know what industrial engineering is? Yeah. So industrial engineering, those are the guys that make things faster, cheaper, more efficient. And so I got that degree, and then I went into ERP software, which is the exact opposite, right? Nothing's faster, nothing's cheaper, nothing's more efficient. So there's that cognitive dissonance. But over the last 30 plus years, I've done a bunch of work selecting, implementing, and over the last almost 10 years, fixing ERP systems. And one of the things that I've done, getting back to those engineering roots, was to think about what type of stuff can we do to make implementations better, because there's a lot of issues with implementations. So two things we want to do today. We want to talk a little bit about why we have this tool and this data that we're going to show you about fit of GP to BC or FSCM, and what that data looks like at a grand scale. Fair? And I'm going to walk around, so I apologize. Now, what you're going to see next is the more sophisticated technical slide part of this presentation. So you'll want to pay close attention to this, because this is the most important thing that you'll probably want to remember. Does anybody know what that is? Any guesses? You're not going to remember a lot of slides. You're going to remember this one. Anybody know what this is? Any horse racing fans? Any horse racing fans? Horse racing fans. Do you know what Secretariat is? Yes. Secretariat is what? The greatest racehorse of all time. Yes? Yes. Any debates? No. Okay. That is Secretariat. That is Secretariat as designed by an ERP implementation committee. Yes? So, have you ever heard the saying that a camel is a racehorse designed by a committee? So that is exactly the reason. This is what we want to avoid, and that's the discussion we have today. So what I started doing about 7 or 8 years ago, I started having sessions like this, and I would tell people, look, ERP success, 3 simple metrics. Can we agree that a successful ERP project is on time, on budget, and on spec? Kind of delivering the functionality that the proposal, the sales guys, the marketing material. Can we agree that's a good metric? So the first time I put this up there, the following statement I thought was going to be controversial, but I still believe it. So, because nobody ever boos me when I say this. Based on those 3 simple metrics for ERP success, there has never been a successful ERP implementation ever. Pardon me?
Like that's a miracle. That never happened.
Thank you. Exactly. So the idea is, if that's the case, what are some of the things that, what are some of the things that cause that? What are some of the problems? How can we fix some of that stuff? So I came up with this concept, the ERP wheel of misfortune. I thought it was the wheel of pain. Who the hell changed that? Anyways, if you take a look at most of the literature in the marketplace, the vast majority of ERP implementations, about 25% are deemed successful. 25 are outright failures, and I'm going to define an outright failure as if somebody told you that the budget's $1 million and you spent $3 million, that's a failure.
Yeah.
Can we agree on that? Okay, good. So this is an outright, this is kind of that do-over, twice the amount of time, twice the amount of budget, on and on and on. Successful, to me, I look at successful as, oh my God, we can print checks and we can print invoices, right? We actually have a system that's up and running and delivering something. Is this delivering all the stuff that we thought it was going to do? No. Challenge is everybody else. It's that, you know, twice the amount of time, 1.5 times the amount of dollars, et cetera, all that other stuff. So what I did when I came up with this, and it's amazing how much this information, as far as those statistics have tracked over time. What I did was I added some math, because I went to engineering school, I had math. Now, does anybody know what expected value is? Anybody? Expected value, anybody? No? All right. Any poker players? No poker players? No mathematicians? No statisticians? Okay. If I flip a coin, and it's a fair coin, I expect it to land on heads 50% of the time. Yes? Agreed? So, if you and I are betting $1 each time, on an average flip, I expect to make 50 cents. Because half the time I lose my $1, the other half the time I win $1. So on an average flip, I'm expected to win 50 cents. Okay, so what happens if we apply math to the ERP wheel of pain? Well, you're going to have to trust me on this. It looks like this. You can trust me on this stuff up here because I took thermodynamics and the formulas are way, way, way more complicated, right? So basically at the end of the day, if we use kind of easy assumptions, what this is telling us that if you engage in ERP implementation, for every $1 you spend, the expected return value is that you're going to lose 50 cents. Who in their right mind would do this? Who would go to Vegas and play on this wheel? Not a single person, right? So we have this kind of expectation, and what do we do to lessen the chances that that's going to happen to us? So the first thing is we take a look at how ERP implementations start really, really badly, okay? And I've got some of these items up here. How many partners are in the room? You may want to stick your fingers in your ear and do la 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 during some of this part, okay? First thing is most of these projects start with a budget, right? And what's a budget? A budget is typically a feel-good number that you throw out mistakenly to a partner or a bunch of partners to turn around and come back with their implementation plan. Here's my advice to you. The minute you give your budget number to a or many partners, add the following information. Your mother's maiden name, your social security number, and the password to your email, okay? Because basically what you're doing, the minute you hand over a budget number, is you're handing over the keys to the kingdom that everybody's shooting at. The budget number for you is an internal feel-good number that has zero, absolutely zero relation to reality, okay? The second thing, every failed budget that tanked billion-dollar companies started with an overly enthusiastic and successful demo. If you're getting demos, just ask them to bring a shovel and hit you on the head with them after the demo. Because a typical demo is typically, the best guys in the company that know exactly how to make things look perfect. So you have to understand how to demo software, not accept the normal demo. This is what we're going to talk about a lot today. Requirements. That's the whole point of what we're doing here today. My own personal record for selling a requirements study is $350,000, just to understand some of these requirements. The largest requirement study I've seen was 2 years ago, company spent $700,000 and a year's worth of time to then, halfway into the project, find out that they missed a whole bunch of functionality. Okay? So this here, this requirements gathering, is an incredibly expensive, time-consuming, and highly flawed procedure, because typically, if you take a look at how requirements are gathered, it's long lists of questions, sometimes 20,000 questions, right? And they're delivered by armies of junior consultants that show up in your conference room and ask you a bunch of questions. One of the problems with those 20,000 questions is they're 1,000 years old and they don't ask a lot of detailed business process questions that they should be asking. And the problem with junior consultants asking those questions is they don't have enough experience to drill into any business areas that you really might find critical. So this over here, that's the part that we're going to address today. How we do that, how that happens more efficiently, and what is the data that comes out of this when it's done by a sophisticated tool at scale, generating a lot of numbers that we can then use and say, hey, if you're a typical GP company, this is what it might cost to go to BC or go to some other software. Okay, so that's what we're here to do. Show me any implementation contract for an ERP project. I'll show you the 3 places automatically where you're going to have a ton of change orders, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months on the road, guaranteed. So, why are requirements so important in the realm of ERP challenge failed projects? I like to do this thing called the asking whys. So, you have a lot of failed challenged ERP projects. Well, why is that? Well, it's because they're over budget, over time, or they've missed some kind of scope. Okay, great. Why is that? We found major errors in the project plans. Okay, understand? At this area, change order, etc. Why is that? Well, because we missed critical requirements. Oh my God, why is that? Well, because we did it with the old checklist, and there was no level of sophistication, and you spent a ton of time and money gathering those requirements. By the time you got them, everyone's exhausted, and nobody has any time left to drill into it. Why is that? Well, there's no great tools to do requirements gathering, so we do it the old way, and we get these bad results. So what are we basing our data on? I have no idea what that slide was in there for. It sounded really good this morning when I was fixing the presentation. Oh, talk about bias on. Look, when you're out in the marketplace and you're looking for information on is BC going to be a fit for me, right? Is it a great fit for you? Is it a great fit for you? When you go out there and do that, there's a tremendous amount of cloud pressure out there by the software vendors trying to get you to move over, and so everything's going to be pretty rosy as far as the marketing and sales information that you find from software vendors, right? A lot of times ISVs, they don't want you to move, or they want you to move to a specific platform, and consultants, they have a reason for you staying or for moving, right? So we always got to figure out what is the bias for the level of information that we're getting. So for example, my bias is towards bad implementations. I'm not a partner. I'm not trying to sell you your next version of ERP software. I'm not going to implement ERP software for you. I'm not going to make $1. I don't care if you stay on Great Plains. I don't care if you leave tomorrow. The only thing I want to do is I want to give you some tools and some information that if you do make the move, you have a chance of having a better project. That's why I put that in this morning. So let's talk about the characteristics of the tool that's driving all this data. So it's not my tool. but it's a tool that's working off a large data set of pulling data from ERP software companies and gathering their requirements. And I believe it's in the thousands of these by now. It has no interest in what software product you're going to. So it's ERP software agnostic, completely unbiased. That's the same word, isn't it? Agnostic and unbiased, right? This is another slide I was working on this morning where I thought I was smarter in the morning. The tool is cloud-based and it's totally data-driven, so that what we're going to show you is a result of a large data set of folks that were Great Plains users, ran their business requirements through this tool set, and you're going to see some large numbers based on that that might inform some thoughts for you moving forward. I want to show you the screen real quick because there's something in here that's going to refer back to this. Typically, when you do a checklist requirements, it's a yes or no, right? Yes, we need that, or no, we don't need it. The interesting thing about the tool that's used to do this allows you to analyze it by several different types of answers. So the must is typically evaluated as, why would we be going to this piece of software if it didn't have this functionality, right? We must have this, right? The should, oh yeah, we should have that. If it doesn't have it, it's not going to kill us, but yeah, it would be really good to have that. And then the could is, oh my gosh, if all of this stuff was running, how cool would it be to have that, right? And then the no, we don't need that, or no, we don't know what we're talking about. So this is a very simple cloud-based interface, and the company that spent $700,000 to have this done, not this, to have their requirements done over a year, they could have used this, and they could have gathered their requirements in a couple of weeks, easily. I know this because we have companies that fill this out in weeks, not months. Okay? Very simple, very straightforward, very easy to use. And the questions are more critical business process requirements instead of nonsense questions, right? So maybe if you're a big manufacturing company, you got 2,000 questions instead of 20,000. All right. So when we're done with this, we literally are able to create reports for companies that are hundreds of pages long and have detailed spreadsheets and an incredible amount of analysis on how their requirements match up against BC and FSCM. So we've got all this data backing us up to engage in a conversation with the customer. What's interesting is how many times we fire up the following screen and the conversation ends right there. So we will launch this. And all conversation with a company starts and ends right here. Because you're talking to executives, and there'll be, business owners that'll want to drill down into more detail. At the high level, the conversation ends here. Because this is what this tells us. Up here just tells us of all the questions that were answered, how many of those questions were, oh my gosh, yes, we absolutely have to have those, et cetera, et cetera. The real meat and potatoes here is my business, Great Plains customer, has a 42% fit if I move to BC. Okay? So off the shelf, my critical business requirements, there's a 42% fit. There's a little partial fit, and then there's a bunch of ISV solutions that naturally fit into this equation and help us out, leaving us with a 30% gap. So these are aggregate numbers. for all of the GP customers that we've ever looked at that ran this analysis and wanted to come out with a fit to BC versus FSCM. Now, in aggregate, this is more closer to an 80% fit. Now, how do I personally know that this tool was just not another BS sales tool intended to take somebody and move them to the next Microsoft product? I suspected that because I've been in business a long time. And I've seen every tool that does this. So the first thing I did is I fired it up and I answered every single question in one of the sessions as a must. So if you did that, you think it's a perfect fit for a Microsoft solution, right? It's not. There are very specific areas where it points out where it doesn't fit. And the fact that there are, I don't know, probably 50 to 60 what I consider enterprise partners and Microsoft offices themselves running somewhere in the neighborhood of 100, 120 of these every month. The minute you release to the public a bunch of answers that are BS, your credibility is shot. So the entire business model for the guys that come up with this data is built on the fact that their data is accurate here. Okay? So this here's a big takeaway. This is a really big takeaway. Now granted, there's a lot of companies in there that are more sophisticated users, manufacturing, distribution, you know, maybe some high-end supply chain stuff. But at an aggregate number, this is the way the numbers come out. Any questions on that? So of course the devil's in the details. And so on these next two slides.
I'm going to ask a question.
Oh my God, really? How did I know that was going to happen? Yes, ma'am.
Is this your tool or is it someone else's tool? Whose tool are you using?
Ma'am, I'm offended that we're in here asking questions about my tool.
I don't want to talk about the tool.
Oh, okay, fine. So, there's 50, 60 partners
Okay.
that use this tool. The folks sitting next to you
Okay.
are representatives from the company that built this.
Gotcha.
I just use it.
You just utilize the tool
I just
that
use
they
it.
built.
Yes. And they're the guys that built it.
All right.
And they're sitting here cringing at half of the comments I made.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the tool that you created?
No, you did a great job.
Oh, you did a great job.
Now, interestingly enough, on those analyses that are run on a monthly basis, there may not be anybody with a legit consulting background, not sales or marketing or anything, that's done more of those than this gentleman here. So he has more detailed knowledge of Great Plains and how it fits and where it fits and doesn't fit. So he may be the smartest guy in the room as far as when it comes to that.
Well, when it comes to fit,
Mm-hmm.
I only see BC and FSCM. Are there others that are compared?
Okay,
Or is it just those two?
that's a great question. Go ahead.
I was going to say we do CE as well,
Okay.
and we're working on.
So to me, that's a bias if it's only just.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm going to tell you why it's not.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why it's not. Because we have customers that do this, okay? The company that built this was a Microsoft partner in a previous life, okay, before they built this. Now, the questions are software agnostic. They don't care what your software solution is. They're business-related questions. Now, they happen to build in the answers to two Microsoft solutions. What we do for a lot of customers, and they do it as well, is when you have that list of requirements, you can very easily pull that out and say, okay, product X, Y, or Z, give us your responses. And now you can compare side to side. Okay? So I even initially participated in answering these questions for GP so that we could analyze GP. You want to know a funny result? We get the GP answers in there, and it wasn't you, but somebody from the company come back and said, guys know what you're talking about. You answered this wrong. I'm going to say, why is that? We've got, 20-something years with GP. He says, yeah, well, it says there's more capability in GP than BC. I said, yeah, that's true, because GP's been around forever, and BC is just growing up, right? So, yeah, but the point is that you can use this and use those requirements and get anybody else to match them. Now, here's a caveat, right? There is a business-killing reason for this thing to be honest. Does that make sense? If a partner can't trust that this is coming out with a correct answer, their business dies because nobody trusts them. Fair? Now, you take that spreadsheet with those requirements and send it to whoever. You have no guarantee what that response is going to be like, right? So you got to trust what that response is like. So I actually, because there is a business reason to be right here, it's important. These next two slides are really just to illustrate the fact that, at a gross level, at a high level, you can have these big matches or little matches. What this gets into is it starts looking into individual modules to identify where the mismatch is. So this is another genius idea I had this morning early, the coffee. This is the devil is in the details slide, right? So this is where what we're able to do and say, okay, you've got a 50% fit BC, you've got an 80% fit here, but maybe that really doesn't matter, because what we want to look at is we need to look at the details and how these match up against the critical stuff that we need as a business. Fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these look a little different because there's a lot more modules in FSCM than there are in the other one. And this is another view of the same information. And this breaks down those requirements into this critical must, shoulds, and coulds.
Yeah, I like the scorecard.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to save the coulds for a later slide, but this is really important. Is the musts? The must should be your minimal viable ERP solution. So your goal should be is to stand up the musts day one. Because if you do that, then you can run your business. And then what you do is you start working on the shoulds and the coulds. If, however, you go with the, oh yeah, let's install everything, right? You've got that grand plan, all of these things are in your implementation plan. The chances of that working successfully are very, very slim. Okay? So those musts are fantastic in identifying critically what it is that implementation project should shoot for day one. Oh, and I want to show you guys something that's kind of interesting. So when somebody comes back to you and says, "Oh, I've got spreadsheets that can do this. What do you need this for? This is ridiculous. I've got a spreadsheet. I've got great lists." Well, this is interesting. When you're coming off of Great Plains, you're used to looking at business functionality in what I call a modular, right? General ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivables, right? And so a lot of folks coming off of Great Plains, what we do is we have them answer the questions in this format because it maps into what they're used to. Here's my general ledger questions, here's my inventory questions, etc. When you're done answering these, because this platform also works with a lot of enterprise level companies, very big international type of companies, this is useful for a mom and pop GP company and a big multinational. A lot of the big multinational enterprises, they don't look at things in this way here. They look at things in, business process or business flow, right? So you have what's called order to cash, right? What is it that takes us in this business process from somebody placing an order all the way to we get cash? And so there's all of these, there's a different view in the system where you can look at all your requirements, and instead of answering them like this, you answer them in critical business process flow. So I stumbled on this idea, and it's really helped out on companies figuring out their requirements. What we do is we go in and we have them answer the questions in the typical process, in the typical manner of by software modules. And then we go inside and we flip a switch, and it automatically orders those questions in a business flow. Now you go back and you go, oh my God, now this makes more sense. I missed this. Well, I don't really need this because it meant something else. So what this is internally, what was intended to address, two different business types, we're actually finding more requirements, thereby less of a chance of missing something on the implementation plan, et cetera, right? All right. Now I'm lost because I went backwards. I'm probably going to have to just start at the beginning because I can't pick stuff up. What was this? Oh. Because this is run against hundreds of projects behind the scenes, the company that runs this is able to take requirements and map them against typical levels of effort and resources, and thereby dollars, to get something accomplished. So, for this is a company, and what we did is we said, okay, for this company, what's the fit of BC? 60%, FSCM, it's 80%, but what are the hours it typically takes to implement this? And we break this down in a much more granular fashion in those hundreds of pages of reports. But here's some high-level stuff, right? Where you can take a look at these and say, oh, okay, I see how many hours it takes to do this stuff. And the critical thing about this is, if you have these numbers, right? Now you know what it should take to implement, right? And if you come up with these dollars, you have these hours, and you multiply them by a billing rate, and that billing rate tells you that this project should be $1 million, and then you go out and ask for proposals, and somebody comes back with the $50,000 proposal and the $5 million proposal. Now you know where you should be trying to drive the implementation, right? Why is this so low? What did we miss? Or what are they doing? Are they trying to get their foot in the door? Why are they quoting so much? Are they doing something that we didn't expect, right? So this is absolutely critical, being able to understand this information. Having the requirements, number one, you can't install a good system without having those requirements tied down. And you can't get requirements by going on the internet and Googling this, okay? I delivered one of these analysis to a Navision manufacturing company. We open up the analysis, and the guy says, no, you're wrong. I researched this, and you're wrong. We are a great fit. I said, I hope you are. Let's drill into the details. 20 minutes later, oh my God, I'm glad we did this, right? Because there's a huge difference between sales and marketing and software publisher information and drilling into the details, right? So for me, a big thing is, I see articles all the time that talk about Business Central and how it's now available for, multiple manufacturing modes. Okay, that's great. But let's drill down into what you actually need, and does it actually work, okay? So the devil's in the details as far as the requirements, and it's real important to understand what it should cost as opposed to what a proposal is telling you it's going to cost, right? And then the last thing I'm going to leave you with is, oh, is that the last? Maybe it's not. What is this? Oh, I'm sorry. There are 2 levels of effort. One was for, that first screen was more of an accounting-based DC versus FSCM, and this is more of a manufacturing company. I thought this was interesting because I normally quote, I said, look, if you're going to do any manufacturing, it's going to be about 10,000 hours. That was back in the day, and it's pretty close to that. But anyway, so those are actually 2 of the same, just different types of businesses. Here's the last screen. So if we break down these requirements by must, shoulds, and coulds, let's take a look down here, more in these 2 areas, right? And think about this for a second, because if we focus only on things that we must have, and then analyze that it's going to be too expensive to go to this product, and we really should stay over here. That's half the story. And I wish I'd come up with this thought, I didn't, but in 2 or 3 more presentations, Kaz, this will no longer be your idea, it'll be fully my idea. But if you take a look at the shoulds and the coulds, what could be really important that we drive out of here is these ISV solutions, okay? And so here's a real important thing, is oftentimes what's more expensive than anything else long term is the ISV solutions and the integrations, what I call the plumbing, right? Because plumbing breaks between different systems, and when things age differently, you got to keep that plumbing up and running. So one of the things that this really allows you to drill down into and understand is, okay, today this looks a lot cheaper, right? This looks a lot cheaper. But oh my gosh, look at the ISVs and stuff that we get rid of when we get to the shoulds and coulds. And it's at that point that, oh my gosh, maybe over here, this looks a lot more attractive because there's a bunch of ISVs that we don't need to add, and maybe there are less integrations and less plumbing for us. So it's another piece of the puzzle we have there. And then my last slide is that thing. I know you guys are on GP, right? We can, because you attended here, and this is a total lie. This is a total lie. Remember that AIM program?
Mm-hmm.
This is covered under the AIM program.
Oh, okay.
So we can run one of those for you and get you all those reports that you saw up here, but specific to your business. Are there any other GP users in the room? Or just offended consultants at this point? Sorry. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.